The keynote address will be from the CEO of Oracle Corporation, Larry Ellison.
Executive Officer of Oracle Corporation, Larry Ellison.
Thank you very much. Thank you. What I'd like to talk about this morning is something that's been in the news a lot, and I don't mean the iPad. I'm going to talk about the issue of data privacy in the age of the internet and cloud computing. Let me start with two words. Edward Snowden. So, Edward Snowden tells us that our government is collecting enormous amounts of information about us. Specifically, they're keeping track of every time we use the telephone and we call somebody. No, they don't record. No one's saying the government records our phone conversations. Edward Snowden doesn't claim this, nor does the government record the phone conversations. What the government does keep is the fact that at 9:30 this morning, I called someone at Oracle Japan. In other words, the phone bill. It keeps the phone records. It knows who I called and who called me. And there is a grave concern, or Edward Snowden said we should all be very worried. Well, first of all, Edward Snowden leaves the democracy of the United States of America, and he goes to a place, a bastion of free speech. He goes to Moscow. And from Moscow, he tells Americans must be concerned about their government. That their government, our government, is collecting all of this information about us. Our government is spying on us. And this is very dangerous. This is extremely dangerous. Well, what's interesting is privacy in the age of the internet and the age of cloud computing is not a technology issue at all. If you want us to keep all of your personal information private, we know how to do that. We can encrypt everything on the wire. We can encrypt voice, we can encrypt data, we can encrypt everything. No one, we can guarantee that nobody will be able to spy on you. And because you live in a democracy, you, the people, get to decide if that's what you want. Do you want to keep all of your personal information private? Is that what you want? Think carefully. Think carefully, because you get to decide. In my country right now, the government is thinking of telling the NSA to mend their ways, to stop collecting this information, because the people are putting pressure on the government. That's the great thing about a democracy. If we don't like what the government is doing, we replace the government. So if you don't like what the NSA is doing and you're an American, you have the ability to change governments, to insist that the government stop collecting personal information. It is your decision. It has nothing to do with technology. I guarantee you, I promise you, our technology, our databases, our communication technology can make sure that it's impossible to break in and decrypt that data. It's simply a matter of what you want. So, Edward Snowden has yet to identify a single person who has been injured, wrongly injured by the collection of this data. Yet people say, well, maybe the data hasn't been misused yet, but it might be misused in the future. Be very careful. Any technology can be misused. Airplanes can be misused. Airplanes have been misused. Doesn't mean we should ban building of airplanes. Technologies are neither good nor bad. By and large, technologies have been used for good. Overwhelmingly, technologies have been used to make us richer, smarter, live longer, have better lives. But every technology can be misused, from the most basic technology. You can imagine the first caveman who discovered fire. I mean, this is a great technology. Fire is an amazing technology. And first, the cave entrepreneur who discovered fire, he said, he was selling fire because he just thought it was great. He said, it's cold in the winter, we can use fire to heat the cave. It's great for heating the cave. We can use fire to cook our food. It's fabulous for cooking our food. The bears that bother us sometimes, we can build a big fire at the mouth of the cave to keep the bears out of the cave. This is a fabulous technology. This is a great technology. Fire, unbelievable. And then there was this one guy in the cave who said, oh, no. Fire, very dangerous. Very dangerous. People will be burned at the stake. They'll be used for torture. It's a very bad, we've got to ban, we've got to stop fire now. Stop fire now. Again, my point is any technology can be misused. Data can be misused. Information can be misused. It doesn't mean we should ban the gathering of that data because it might be misused. We don't ban airplanes because they might be misused. We don't ban fire because it might be misused. We shouldn't ban the gathering of data because it might be misused. We should punish the people who do misuse the data. And in a democracy, we can do that. If someone misuses that data, we can punish them. If they're a politician, we can kick them out of office. But should we basically try to keep all personal data private? Since we live in a democracy, both here in Japan and in my country, you get to decide. So let's look at history. Do you really want to keep all your personal data private? I don't think so. In fact, I believe just the opposite. I believe you are anxious to share the most intimate details of your life in exchange for something you value. Let me give you an example. I believe you would be willing to tell me where you work, how much you earn, the amount of your last raise, how much money you've saved, how much you owe on your car, how much you owe on your house, where your kids go to school and how much their tuition is, where you went shopping yesterday, where you went shopping last week, how much your wife earns, how much your husband earns, how much your kids earn, how much your kids owe, how much you owe, how much your wife owes, how much your wife spends in a year, how much you spend in a year. I believe you would be happy to give me all that data about you, so long as I was willing to give you, in exchange, a credit card. Because that's exactly what you did. All over the world. You disclosed every intimate detail of your family's financial life in exchange for a credit card. In other words, you traded privacy, a lot of privacy, to make shopping easier. Well, I go shopping. I like shopping. Most people have to go shopping. But it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting how much of our privacy we were willing to trade away in exchange to make shopping a bit more convenient. As a result of disclosing all of our financial data, all of us are much richer today. It eased commerce. It made retail grow rapidly. People were allowed to borrow against their credit card and spend more money than they had currently on hand. It stimulated the economy. It made us much wealthier. It allowed the banks to extend loans in a fraction of a second. I can come from California, walk into Mikimoto, God help me, walk into Mikimoto and buy a necklace or a pair of earrings and hand them a rectangular plastic card, and they just give me a very expensive necklace or earrings. Amazing. So that's one example of how quickly we have traded away our privacy in exchange of becoming richer, a richer society, to make shopping more convenient. Let me give you another example. I believe you would name all your friends. Tell me everyone you're friendly with. Put pictures of your kids online. Picture of your wife, your husband online, your aunts, your uncles, your kids and your kids' friends. Tell me where you go on vacation. Tell me what you do on vacation. Send me pictures of you on vacation doing what you do. I believe you disclose all of those personal details about your life voluntarily in exchange for being a member of Facebook. What's in it for you? You're trading away an incredible amount of your personal privacy. So you can see pictures of your kids in college. You can see pictures of your kids and their friends playing together. You get a little bit closer to your family. You get a little bit closer to your friends. And you willingly choose to give up enormous amounts of privacy as part of that deal. We are constantly trading our privacy for benefits like credit cards and pictures of our kids on vacation. Yet we react so strongly because our government's has a copy of our phone bill, because the government has a copy of our phone bill. And we can't name a single example of where that data has ever been misused. And if it was misused, we all know we can fire everyone who misused it. That's the way our system works. But we're about to tell the government, stop. Stop collecting that data. I'm very worried about my privacy. Think about it. We live in a democracy. You decide. You tell your government what to do. So you need to think about this, because this is important. This is really important. Think about how much data, how much privacy you've already traded away. All right, let's talk a little bit about the future. We talked Facebook is in the past, credit cards in the past. I believe in the not very distant future, you're going to tell me more about you than you know. You're going to give me a complete map of your DNA, and you're going to do it voluntarily. In fact, you're going to be anxious that I have a copy of your DNA, and I put it in a database. You are going to send me every single medical record you can find on you. Every drug you ever took, every time you were in the hospital, every doctor you visited, how long you were in the hospital, what medical procedures you had, every test you took, the result of every test you took. You'll want me to take it all. Everything. Every excruciating, intimate detail about your health. And the reason you'll be anxious, and by the way, I think you're going to do it voluntarily, and I think the way it's going to work is some people, you're going to be able to do this voluntarily. You can choose to give it, or you can choose to hold it. Some of these privacy decisions we're going to make as individuals, like health records. You're going to either disclose your health records or keep it private. That will be done on an individual basis, like Facebook is an individual basis. You can join Facebook. You can not join Facebook. You can apply for a credit card. You can not apply for a credit card. You can give me your health records. You can keep your health records private. If you give me your health records, when your doctor sees you, and let's say you have high cholesterol, and there are several different statin drugs the doctor can prescribe for you, wouldn't it be nice if he could go into the database and look at your DNA and figure out exactly which drug works best to lower cholesterol with people with the same genome characteristics as you? Wouldn't you like to get the drug that's best for you? The only way to get the drug that's best for you is you to tell me all of those details. It will benefit everybody who opts in. We'll have all the people who ever received Crestor, for example, their DNA profile. Who are the people, what is the DNA of the people who did very well on Crestor look like? What is the DNA of people who did not do well on Crestor like? Wouldn't you like your doctor to have that information? Isn't that enormously valuable? Keep you out of the hospital. Save your government a lot of money if your government is the payer of for health care. Everyone benefits. You stay out of hospital. You're able to go to work. Government doesn't have to pay. Your private insurance company doesn't have to pay. By sharing your personal data, there are enormous benefits both to you individually and to the society as a whole. Because we all, I should say all, more than 1 billion people have opted in for Facebook. Many billions of people have opted in for credit cards. I believe most people will opt in to share their health records. And still we sit around and get very upset because the National Security Agency has a copy of our phone bill. It's interesting. We get really upset. A copy of our phone bill? Do they have our DNA? No. Do they know where we work and how much we make? No. So what is the NSA trying to do? Well, they're trying to keep a small number of people from committing a large-scale terrorist act. They're trying to, what they didn't do before 9/11, they're trying to connect the dots. And this kind of data is useful. Now, is it worth, and again, we live in a democracy, so you have to decide, is it worth trading a little, your phone bill, trading your phone bill in exchange for avoiding another 9/11 in New York City? I know how I'd vote, but all of you guys got to vote. It's a democracy. You got to decide, especially considering what you've shared with Facebook, what you're going to share in terms of health records, what you've shared in terms of financial data with credit cards, the bargains that you've struck, what you've traded, what the benefits were, and there are always benefits for you trading away a certain degree of privacy to get other benefits. One of the benefits is safety. And are you willing to trade a certain degree of privacy in exchange for safety? Again, no one can name a single individual that the NSA, or a single example of that data being misused. And be careful, don't mistake misuse for potential misuse. All technology can be misused. The question is, has this data ever been misused? Is there a single example of it ever being misused? In the City of London, the people have decided to put closed-circuit television cameras everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And it's a democracy. They can decide to pull them out. They didn't decide to pull them out. And you can use those television cameras for solving all sorts of crimes, great and small. You decide. You decide. They've been used to solve terrible murders. Terrible, terrible murders of small children. And the most heinous crimes one could imagine. And they've been used to give people tickets for speeding. We live in a democracy. You get to decide. Maybe you only want this data to be used to find terrorists or murderers or mass drug importers. But again, you get to decide. Maybe, hey, speeding, not that I would ever speed. I own a lot of fast cars, but I always drive them slowly. So we can decide what we want to do with this technology. It's neither inherently good nor inherently bad. We in a democracy can decide, in this case collectively, we will decide collectively, how much of our privacy we trade off for safety. It's our decision. Very different than if we lived in Russia, where Mr. Snowden now lives. Okay, that's kind of the end of my prepared remarks about data privacy in the era of the internet and cloud computing. And maybe if Mikitani-san will come up and join me, we'll open it up to the audience for questions. I hope it's been provocative. Want me there? Okay.
Thank you it was a very, very strong message and very, very impressive to learn about your perspective about the privacy. And definitely it is one of the most sensitive issue in Japan right now. Now Japan in the midst of discussing about my number. And there are huge sort of pressure to restrict the usage of my number. Some government officials says we should just limit for example, for the medical usage. And we should have a different set of my number for general purpose.
Right.
And I think there are some business interests related to the people who advocate like this. But I think people who are, getting here all agree with what you're saying. But at the same time, we have such a legacy, old school people in our community who are not convinced. How can we convince them? What kind of activity or what kind of action shall we take to convince them or change that sort of a very conservative way of thinking of the
Well, again, I think a lot of these decisions, again, I point out will be individual decisions. So I think we can look for a lot of cases where people are allowed to opt in, where every individual, rather than trying to convince 100% of the people, let's say Facebook whether to create Facebook went before any parliament anywhere in the world to approve Facebook. I think it would be very, once you describe Facebook, we take all your pictures, your family, your friends, we put everything online. People would be, I think a lot of people would say, I'm very concerned about Facebook. I don't want my pictures of my family online. And the way, quote, the market solved the problem with Facebook is individuals chose to join or not join. I think government health records, say, being a particular example, I think the government can institute a similar approach in letting individuals decide whether they want to opt in or opt out.
Yes, and I think also it is very important to educate the general public, because most of the Japanese citizens are not clearly aware of what's the difference between opt-in and opt-out.
Well, I think one of the nice things about Facebook, by the way, is it started mainly, as you know, it started at Harvard, where you went to school, and it started with kids first at Harvard, and then Ivy League and college kids, but eventually, moms and dads and grandmothers, and it went to the next generation and the next generation as they saw it. So the nice thing about the opt-in model is it's a great educational vehicle. Mm-hmm. So rather than someone trying to educate you when your son or daughter is showing you how it works and showing you the benefits of using a system like this, then you the education happens within the family, where people have a lot more credibility than, let's say, just quote, the public official trying to sell an idea would have.
Well, let's just switch a topic a little bit, which is related to the privacy issue you raised, to more business related to Oracle, which is obviously the cloud computing. That we are. I think there's the argument in Japan whether the government should allow to store private data on the cloud or not. And there are some industries in Japan which does not allow to use cloud computing because it's not secure enough. But the Oracle has been pushing forward the cloud business so strongly. And what's the biggest difference between the strategy of Oracle Cloud versus others, such as, say, Amazon Warehouse Service, AWS, or Microsoft Azure? What is the biggest strategical difference between?
Well, I think, I guess I would describe us as unusual company in the sense that a lot of people we're very large. We're a very large company. We have 125,000 employees, and people associate us as competing with IBM, competing with SAP. In other words, old tech. Well, I think we're the most aggressive old tech company in trying to have one foot in old tech, which we think is very important. Banks and data centers and all of the governments will not, not everything is going to go to the cloud. But the same companies that have their huge data centers will put some stuff in the cloud. And we want to have 1 foot in on-premise computing and 1 foot in cloud computing. So we're trying to do that great Silicon Valley term, crossing the chasm. We're trying to, move from old tech to new tech, but actually not really move, be both, and bridge the gap so that we can supply your technology needs if you're building an on-premise data center, and we can provide your technology needs if you want to go to the cloud, and we do both.
But are you pursuing to the sort of consumer market as well, or?
We are not really. We are a. I leave that to smarter people than I am. I leave that to you. and again, as we discussed at lunch the other day, that every day I thank God I'm not in the consumer business, which is a much faster moving business than, let's say, we'll call pure tech business, or B2B versus B2C. We sell to lots of consumer companies. So we, maybe people don't know, but we are the largest automator of retail in the world. So people use our merchandising software, our e-commerce software. We have the largest e-commerce software suite. And again, most of the big retailers are using our stuff, at least in North America and Europe, less so in Asia, but we're making progress in Asia. And while we enable B2C commerce, we automate a lot of the phone companies. Obviously, the phone companies have huge numbers of relationship with consumers, virtually all the consumers in the world. We enable consumer business-to-consumer relationships. We don't directly sell to consumers. We sell to businesses that in turn sell to consumers.
And let's talk a little bit about your history. And when I first met, I didn't know you started your career in Japan. Can you share your story about it a little bit? Because we have a Japanese audience and they're gonna love it.
Yeah. Well, I remember one time, for a while I lived in Tokyo and I commuted to Hitachi City on the Japanese National Railway. I worked for Fujitsu. I worked for Fujitsu for a while and for Hitachi. I guess the strangest thing I've ever done is I played center field on the Hitachi team for a while.
Baseball.
Baseball.
Same professional.
I wanted to try out for the Golden Eagles, and so far you said no, but. I started working. My first job was a company called Amdahl, which was 50% owned by Fujitsu. So I ended up working for Fujitsu very early in my career, and then Hitachi. And I guess one small anecdote at Hitachi, I was famous for hooking up the computers so we could watch the Emperor's Cup Sumo at 4 o'clock while still at work.
But did your experience in Japan somehow influenced your way of thinking, or running the way you run the company, or?
I think one thing you learn when you work in Japan is you learn how to work, and we work very, very. I was used to working very, very long hours. At least I thought I was used to working very, very long hours, and we actually had a great engineering team at both Fujitsu. Very happy working at Fujitsu. Very happy at Hitachi. All of us worked very, very hard. So it was good training for an entrepreneur, because I don't care how smart you are, being an entrepreneur is a lot of hours and a lot of hard work.
Well, two great entrepreneurs, and Steve Jobs and yourself, kind of love Japan. He is very famous for Zen, for the SSD, the beautifulness of the consumer product. Now you live in this Japanese house, very, very famous. And why do you like the Japanese culture so much?
Oh, that's I have a home in Nanzenji, and in Kyoto. I mean, right out today, after my last meeting today, I get on the Shinkansen and go to my home in Kyoto. And I will tell you what I love about Japanese. Many things I love, but I think the Japanese garden is the most beautiful art form I have ever seen. I think it is this unique collaboration between human beings, and nature. Or if you prefer, human beings and God. I'm not a religious person, but it is this natural beauty and human beings conspiring together to build this beautiful environment. And I think human beings have been on this earth for a very, very long time. And as extraordinary as Tokyo is, or Shanghai, or New York, or London, human beings spent most of their time on Earth in small villages by streams, in small villages by lakes. And I think that was our evolutionary environment. That's the environment where we as human beings are most comfortable and feel the most safe. And I think the Japanese have recreated that evolutionary environment in their gardens.
Well, I think you are the most impressive, successful entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, and you made you're clearly different from other sort of the B2B IT players. You acquired Sun Microsystem, PeopleSoft, MySQL, and you kind of survived when you took advantage of those big change of the trend. And why can you do it, and why other people cannot do it? Why are you so different?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. Our acquisitions, we have an overall place we want to go, and some things we have to build. And as you know, building software takes a very long time. So if we can take a shortcut and get there by buying something, and something good is available, we will. Sun was the best acquisition we've ever made. You know, you mentioned MySQL. We got MySQL. We got Java. We got Solaris. We got the Spark microprocessor, which is now the world's fastest microprocessor. So we got these incredible assets for $5.5 billion. I mean, for almost nothing. I mean, it's so undervalued. The markets, while they are right in the long run, in the short run, they make big mistakes on the way up and they make big mistakes on the way down. So there's lots of opportunities. So we're very cost conscious. We buy intellectual property portfolios. We buy IP, and we buy very talented engineering teams. And we got all of the above. Very good price, fantastic engineering team, and a great intellectual property portfolio with Sun. We've made other good acquisitions, but that was the best. And then we're not shy about saying what Sun has, what we bought is better than what we have now. And then we let that team run that area, that product area. So we don't have, we're very ruthless about avoiding a not invented here syndrome. We don't think that that what we built is necessarily better than what someone else built. And if someone else built something better, we're thrilled to be able to buy it.
Was the integration kind of difficult after the buying or acquiring these companies? Always post-merger integration is a big issue for IT companies. I'm sure there are going to be thousands of M&As happening here and there, but there was big issues. How can we integrate them into your company?
Well, we actually, most companies when they buy something, as you know, the simplest way to integrate is to not integrate at all. You keep running it as a separate entity. And we almost never do that, unless it's a business we were not in before. If it's overlapping with something we already do, we'll shut one of the two businesses down. We'll shut something down, and that will be the surviving business. A lot of the software we acquire, we rewrite. It might take us 3, 4, 5 years to rewrite it, but we rewrite it in Java on top of the Oracle database and according to our standards. So we have detailed technology integrations, detailed organizational integrations. My tutor for all of this was Jack Welch at General Electric. Oh. So acquisitions, every acquisition is different. I think the key thing Jack said, every acquisition is different. There's no one rule for acquisitions. And we think that's one of our core competencies, is figuring out when to integrate, when not to integrate, when the acquired product is better than the home product, how to retire the home product, all of those things. So
Thank you very much. That's very, very helpful for me as well. And talking about the recent trend in Silicon Valley, of course, we acquired Viber. We're not a Silicon Valley company, but the Facebook acquired WhatsApp at $19 billion, and it seems like there's a huge shift in the industry, more towards smart devices and smartphones. What is your perspective about all these smart devices and wearable computing and so forth?
Well, I think things are changing at an incredible rate. A long time ago, I kind of looked at when the internet first showed up. For the first time, with the advent of the internet, for the first time, it was possible for the computing to look like a utility. Utility has two pieces. Let's say electric utility, power generation and power distribution. So you have the power grid to distribute electricity, and then nuclear power plants, coal power plants, natural gas power plants to generate electricity. So with the internet, you suddenly had this distribution system for data, two-way distribution system for data. Now, the only thing that happened next is people to go into the business of providing the power. And one of the first to do that was AWS. But in the meantime, for this to work, the internet said all this intelligence we have in the PC, all the data storage we have in the PC, we need to get rid of that. Users shouldn't have to deal with complexity on their desktop. If you look at most consumer devices, they're very simple. Simplest one probably the water utility. A simple faucet for the water utility, a plug for the electric utility. You don't have to back up your faucet. You don't. It should be a much simpler device. So we saw PCs become less and less important, and these simple, if you will, computers that are designed to be attached to networks all the time take their place. A long time ago, someone called them network computers. And at times,
You did.
Yes, right. So
that's all you created.
So the world. So I thought the world would change from complexity on the user's desktop, and all that complexity would migrate into the compute utility, both power generation and power distribution. And you'd have these simple end user devices, which we now have, whether it's an iPad or an Android phone or the Sony, all the different, the Sony phone that you were carrying the other day. You have these rather simple devices that really have no life without the network.
So my hypothesis, if I can share, all these devices, like what happened to the personal computer, it will be commoditized. Even much more so, because it doesn't have a mechanical functionalities.
Right.
It's just a touch screen and CPU memory inside. So PC used to have some, the touch of the keyboard and those kind of things. But this is going to be just a connectivity, computing power, memory, and software and display. So my hypothesis is iPhone, Android, that's going to be, everything will be the same in the future.
I think these things will get, as you know, everything's going to get very cheap. These are going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to the point we have universal connectivity. Everyone will have the ability to talk to everyone else, and there'll be just a whole new generation of applications. Everyone was. I'll speak for myself inside the Valley. When WhatsApp sold for $19 billion US, not Hong Kong dollars, US dollars, I think a lot of us were shocked until we thought about it and understood the value of that many consumers, having access to that many consumers, and what companies typically pay on a per consumer basis with your cable TV company. Now, again, this is probably not the place to debate how much you could get through WhatsApp. $1 a year per customer is not going to do it. but you will there will be opportunity, I believe, to sell these same customers other things as they join your ecosystem. And there was quite a battle between Facebook and Google over that property. So it wasn't one guy did something really silly with a lot of money. Mark Zuckerberg won an auction over Google and paid a high price, but got a very, very valuable asset in the 21st century.
And according to this big shift to these smart devices, wearable computing, connected devices, how does it influence the strategy of Oracle?
Well, the more people connected, we've never been on the device side of things. The device side, again, that's why I'm so happy. I'm so happy every day that I'm not in the consumer business, not in the device business. So, by the way, it's a great business to be in, but you better live it every day. I mean, that's very different than the business we're in. We're in the data management business. So all of these devices require huge amounts of data management. So if you have an iPhone and you send an email and you use the Apple supplied email, that's all an Oracle database. So if you load iTunes, that comes out of an Oracle database. So as you look at these huge databases around the world, whether they're email databases or text messages or airline reservations or banking balances, all of this stuff are in Oracle databases. Oracle is bigger than the next 4 database companies combined. And the era we're living in is actually not called the internet age. It's not called the cloud age. It's called the information age. And I know at any given year, there's something new that we're excited about. It's cloud, before that was internet, before that was PC, and certainly now smartphones, they're these exciting areas. But over the years, over the last 25, 30 years, the age we're living in is the information age. And our business is to manage the bulk of the world's information. And we should be able to make a living doing that.
Because of the smart devices, I think the amount of data stored, transferred is exploding. And accordingly, your computing power needs to, get dramatically keep improving. And definitely in the IT industry, there is a Moore's law that the CPU speed will be double every 1.5 years. But it seems like Oracle is even ahead of Moore's law, and you shared a little bit about the new development project you're working on, how important the speed of the database and your servers is. Can you possibly share a little bit of that?
Yeah, no, I would love to, because it's really very interesting. Oracle, in one sense, is a very strange company, in that we do everything from design silicon to do retail marketing systems. It's extreme, very high-end applications, but by industry, telecommunications billing systems, things like that in software, all the way down, operating system, virtual machine, all the way down to the microprocessor. So what we are doing, what we're equipped to do, is decide what functions belong in silicon versus software, because we have both. And we're migrating a lot of our database functions, a lot of our software functions into silicon. And you're going to see, you've already seen order of magnitude performance increases. We have this product line called Exadata. And Exadata is kind of the only high-end computer that's actually growing in sales. Most of the high-end computers are collapsing and being replaced by commodity Intel machines. The one conspicuous variant is these Exadata machines are growing 30, 40% a quarter. And it's getting to be a pretty big business. And that's an example where, because We design the InfiniBand network. We design the microprocessor. We engineer all the hardware and software. This is our new tagline. Hardware and software engineered to work together. We think we can build systems that run much faster, that use much less power, that cost much less, that are more reliable, more secure, by putting the function in the right place. Silicon, the database, the operating system, we can place the function at the right level. Modern cloud companies, they all put this very important feature called multi-tenancy at the application layer. So Salesforce.com, a company where I own half the company called NetSuite, which by the way was the first cloud company. The very first cloud company was NetSuite. The second cloud company, big cloud company, was Salesforce about a year later. And they all built this thing, multi-tenancy, where multiple customers can use the same database. They built it into their application. We decided the right place for multi-tenancy to be was not at the application layer, but at the database layer. And it's kind of an example, and we think there are just huge benefits to doing it that way. Much better security, much better performance, I go on and on. And because we handle all layers of the technology stack, we think we can do a better job of building entire computer systems than anyone. We're the only company in the world that goes from silicon all the way up to high-level application programs.
This could have been achieved partially because you acquired Sun Microsystems?
Yes. Oh, definitely because we acquired Sun. I don't think we could have done, we could not have done this without Sun Microsystems. No way.
So, I think everybody, when they heard the news that you're trying to buy, going to buy Sun Microsystems, oh, why do you want to buy hardware, right? But did you have this vision from the beginning, or?
Yeah, yes, we had already built our first Exadata machines. We did it in partnership with another company, and there were lots of problems. And we realized that it's very hard. Exadata was very important to us to build this machine designed to process the database. It was not so important to this other company. So they didn't have their best people on it. It was just very frustrating to work through an American Silicon Valley partner. We felt it had to be part of our core competence. And when Sun became available, people forgot what a great company Sun was. Let's say, it was 8 years before we bought them. I mean, Sun had fallen on hard times. They were doing very badly. But Sun had been a great company, had a great engineering team, had Java, Solaris, Spark, had all of these assets, MySQL. I remember a long time ago, another company that had fallen on very hard times, worse than Sun. That company was called Apple Computer. And again, it was considered just hopeless and no reason to pay any attention. It's going to go out of business. And my best friend for 25 years was Steve Jobs. And Steve and I couldn't stand it anymore, and I actually raised the money to go buy all of Apple Computer. I was going to buy all of Apple Computer. I was going to give 25% to Steve, and he was going to run it. And we went on a walk. I told him about my great plan, and he told me he had actually figured out a way to buy Apple, or get control of Apple, without me having to buy Apple. By the way, Apple would have cost less than $5 billion. At that time, less than $5 billion, which still is not, more than dinner, but considering, considering what the intellectual property portfolio was, I thought it was worth a lot of money. But people were saying, oh, it's dead. I mean, I talked to a lot of people. I said, why would you buy that? It's dead. Apple's absolutely dead. So when you hear about these companies, that's the problem with the stock market. When a company is down, like a Sun or an Apple, they send it too far down. It always overreaches. When a company's up, sometimes it's too far up. Sometimes, and the market tends to exaggerate the ups and exaggerate the downs. Anyway, Steve found a way to get control of Apple, become CEO of Apple without me buying the company. But we were this close. We were this close, and I could have made a lot of money, Mickey, but I didn't.
Please call me on next occasion. Well, this is a very good opportunity to talk about the many brands in Japan, obviously in electronic business. The products, TV, smartphone, tablets. Frankly speaking, Japanese companies are struggling versus Samsung, Apple, taking over all over the world. What shall they do?
Well, again, this is another story. When Steve and I were on a walk after Steve had taken over Apple, become CEO of Apple, they bought his company, Next Computer, and then eventually made Steve CEO. We are another one of our walks, and whenever Steve had something to discuss, we always went for these long walks in a place called Castle Rock State Park. You know it. Okay, so we go for these walks, and Steve said to me, Larry, I'm tired of competing with Microsoft. Wouldn't it be more fun to compete with Sony? And the observation was what the United States was really good at was software. And Steve always recognized that Apple was a software company. Now, this might shock a lot of people. And of course, Steve actually referred to me as someone who had hardware envy. He said, I loved industrial design, I loved microprocessor design, and I just was so interested in that part of the business. And his belief that Apple was 98% software and 2% everything else. Now, it's an important 2%, but most of the investment was in software. And he thought that if, Microsoft is a tough competitor in software, that typically, the Japanese were spectacular at games at the time. Nintendo, there was Nintendo. They're all the great game companies were in Japan. That a lot of the big consumer electronic companies were still analog companies more than they were digital companies. And he had such a software advantage over a Sony, which he admired. By the way, in those days, we even talked about buying Sony. Sony was very expensive, but the thought that the software advantage would be enough to sustain him and allow him just to take a piece of Sony out. And that's why the very first thing we did, it didn't even have that much software, but it had enough, and that was the iPod. And that was the first realization of shifting targets away from Microsoft and away from the PC and go after the Sony device business.
I see. Well, the time is running up. So I would like to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. Of course, Oracle is not categorized as the venture company anymore. It is one of the greatest, companies in all categories. But you started in 1977 as a startup. Can you give Japanese entrepreneurs some quick, sort of advice?
I'll give them my standard advice to entrepreneurs is you can't be successful as a small company doing the same thing everyone else is doing. So a long time ago, I was talking to Michael Dell, right at the beginning of the PC era, and I said, Michael, there must be 100 PC companies. And Michael said, no, Larry, there are 1,000 PC companies. And I said, that makes no sense to me. And it didn't, of actual PC companies, his was the only survivor. Now Apple, you call Apple a PC company, I don't. I think that's a little bit different. I mean, Microsoft, Intel, PC. Obviously, Microsoft made a lot of money from the PC, though they didn't make PCs. Intel made a lot of money from the PC, though they didn't make PCs. The only one who actually made and distributed these things, I mean, everyone started. I mean, IBM, Hewlett-Packard still makes them and all that. But Hewlett-Packard was an existing company. But the only company that was really born, that survived, all the rest of these, Eagle Computer, there are so many of them, went away. So if you're an entrepreneur, you have to find errors in conventional wisdom. You have to find where everyone says, when you tell them your idea, most people say you're crazy. You know, well, no one's.
You love it.
And everyone says, no one's doing that. No one's doing that, you're crazy. No one's doing that, you're crazy. When you hear that, no one's doing that, you must be crazy. There are two possibilities. One is you're first with a really good idea. Unfortunately, the other is you're crazy.
Okay, thank you very much. Unfortunately, there are so many things I would like to ask, but we run out of time. I know this is a very special, occasion to have you as our keynote speaker, and we pretty much appreciate Oracle's commitment to Japan, and we hope we will be able to keep a good relationship. Thank you very much, Larry.
Thank you, Mickey.